Hi, I'm Holly, and with my sister Heather, you're listening to Haunted Family Podcast, a weekly podcast about the paranormal, unsolved mysteries, and some true crime. This week is Unsolved Mysteries.
Which is Holly's least favorite.
And yet I picked this topic.
You did. But honestly, as far as Unsolved Mysteries goes, this is probably one of the more... It's an unsolved mystery with a lot of grit to it.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And nobody dies, so it's not an unsolved mystery that's really depressing. I hate that.
Yeah, maybe we should make it a rule that we don't cover unsolved mysteries where it involves death.
We could do that.
You know we're never going to stick to that rule, though.
I know. Rules are made to be broken.
And we break them all the time.
If you are someone who does not read the title of what you're listening to, and you just listen to it because you know that you love everything that we do, and you don't care what the topic is, this week we're talking about D.B. Cooper.
Fun fact, I used to live next door to a DB.
Fun fact, I really love Cutting Edge, and that guy's name was D.B. Sweeney.
Well, my neighbor's name was literally just DB. He didn't have it wasn't short for anything. It wasn't an abbreviation. His mama named him D, the letter D, and B, the letter B.
Okay, that does not surprise me. It should surprise me.
That's an Eastern Kentucky thing, y'all.
And yet it does not surprise me.
Yeah.
Because in Eastern Kentucky, another common thing is to name people Junior. Not father's first, middle, last name, Junior. No, just Junior. I don't understand that. And yet, lots of people do it. Maybe they don't realize that the Junior is supposed to... I don't know, but...
So, let's get into the nitty-gritty about D.B. Cooper.
Okay.
On November the 24th. Sorry, my notes are bad.
1971. So
in the air between Portland, Oregon and Seattle, Washington.
Yeah, hold on. We got to stop for just a second. People, this happened Thanksgiving week. Thanksgiving Eve to be exact.
Like one of the busiest travel days of the year.
And yet yet he walked up to the counter, bought a ticket, paid cash, signed his name.
His ticket read Dan Cooper. We'll get into how we got DB Cooper out of Dan Cooper later in the podcast.
Yeah. But he paid cash, $20. And
well, I mean, it's only a 30-minute flight.
That's true. But I'm just baffled that this plane was not oversold and people were getting bumped.
Wasn't actually even half full.
No, it wasn't even full. That's the craziest thing. This is Thanksgiving Eve. Like, everybody's traveling. But for this flight, it wasn't. So, anyway, it was a 30-minute flight. And he boarded the plane. It was a Boeing 727. And that's important.
Yeah. The airline was Northwest Orient. And Northwest Orient is no longer an airline. They merged with Delta in 2008.
We have flown Delta.
We have flown Delta.
Thankfully, it was uneventful.
Yes, no hijacking.
No, although this is how long ago it was. My cassette player, I had a Walkman, and it ate my Poison tape. And I remember screaming that my Walkman ate poison, and Dad was like, well, now it's dead. And I did not think that was amusing at all. But that's how long ago that was. That it was a Walkman and I was listening to Poison.
Yes. So, back to all this.
Okay, yes.
Not long after the flight took off, Mr. Cooper
ordered a bourbon and soda.
And he hands a note to the airline flight attendant I guess back in the day they called them stewardesses, but don't call an flight attendant a stewardess today.
Yeah.
Because if
Schaffner.
Yeah. He handed her a note. And being a flight attendant, she is used to guys passing her their number. So she just drops it into her purse.
Right. And he told her, you might want to read that.
Because I've got a bomb. So she does. And he has her move from the jump seat that she was in to the seat next to him.
Yeah, because they're in the back of the plane, which is also important.
Yes. She asked to see the bomb, and he opens his briefcase and shows her what appears to be a bomb to her. It's 8 cylinders, stacked 4 on top of 4, and a large battery. To anybody that doesn't know much about bomb making, that would look like a bomb.
I know nothing about bomb making.
I had to take a very brief class with with somebody from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms that covered bombs. So I know very, very, very little, but I know enough. And what he basically said in the class was, if you want to take one key out of this class, is bombs are only limited by the imagination of the bomb maker. And then he showed us didn't show us. He told us how to make some really interesting bombs.
That seems very irresponsible. Well, it was like the time that I was working for Head Start, and we got paid extremely little, like hardly anything. And so I laughed when we were having pre-service training, and this cop is telling us how to make meth, and I was like, is this because he knows we get paid shit and we might need a side job?
I always look, they used to, in the newspaper, show all of the meth making materials that they would confiscate, laid out on a table. And I was like, does the news media not know that they're basically just showing everybody right now, hey, run out and buy this stuff and you can throw together meth? Because I have seen some of these people who make meth. It can't be that hard to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd find a way to blow up everything.
That reminds me. Do you think that when Grandma's neighbor's house blew up?
Yes.
Do you think it was really meth?
Yes.
Because I know that they claimed it was a gas leak, but Grandma's house didn't have gas, and they were built at the same time.
Yeah, no, I totally think that it was meth.
And I never saw them have a gas tank outside their house or anything like that.
Right. No, I don't think it was gas.
Okay. I'm just making sure that we were on the same page about that. I've always thought that was meth.
Okay, so he states his demand.
That was one of those wild tangents that some of our listeners don't like, but...
Oh, well. So, he states his demands. He wants $200,000 in negotiable American currency.
That is just over $1 million in today's money.
Right. 4 parachutes, 2 primary and 2 reserve, and a full truck standing by in Seattle to refuel when they get there.
It ended up taking 3 tankers to refuel the plane.
Yeah. So, a 30-minute flight actually takes a couple of hours because they have to wait for the demands to be met. So they're just kind of circling.
They land back on the ground at 5:24 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and they begin to refuel. One of the demands he made was that all of the shades in the plane be lowered so that in case law enforcement has snipers out there, snipers couldn't get a good shot at him.
Which they probably would have.
Yes.
So they did not tell the other passengers why they were being delayed. They were told that it was minor mechanical difficulties, which would have freaked me out probably more than there's a bomb on the plane.
Yeah, totally. I probably could handle the plane as being hijacked better than the plane is having a malfunction.
Yeah. So they get the parachutes and the ransom money. All the other passengers are let off.
Yeah. When the manager of Northwest Orient Seattle office is delivering the parachutes and the money, he actually changes out of his airline uniform into regular clothes because he didn't want Dan Cooper at this time, to think that he was law enforcement approaching the plane. Because they didn't know if he was armed or what was going to happen. So he changes into regular street clothes and approaches the plane with all the demands. And at this time, Mr. Cooper is discussing with the crew what his other demands are.
And they're very specific.
And this kind of makes me think that he knows planes a bit.
Right. Like, he tells them that he wants them to fly at a maximum of 10,000 feet.
At the minimum speed they could.
Yes. So they're flying just above where they would stall and fall out of the sky.
He wants them to leave the landing gear down.
And he wants the wing flaps to be lowered 15 degrees.
15 degrees. Yeah.
And he wants the cabin to remain unpressurized.
He also asks for the aft stairs to remain down. And he gets into an argument about whether or not that is safe with Northwest Orient's company.
Right.
And finally he relinquishes and allows them to raise the stairs during takeoff, and then he re-lowers them.
Right. He asks one of the flight attendants how to work the stairs. But that was why this specific plane was important, because this specific plane has those back stairs that would lower. Not all planes have that.
Yeah. So at this point, he's already released the passengers. He releases most of the airline attendants. And so many of the reports I read, they still call them stewardesses. So it's hard to switch back into thinking modern terms.
I have a friend who is a flight attendant, and sometimes he will tag like pictures like hot steward or something like that. But for the most part, he prefers to be called a flight attendant.
A friend of mine actually used to be a flight attendant. A girl that, actually, you don't like her, so we'll just leave it at that. Okay. So at 7:40, the plane takes off again.
Yep.
And on board is Mr. Cooper, the pilot, a flight attendant, the co-pilot, and the flight engineer. Oh, yeah. That's all of this on board. The Air Force has sent 2 F-106 Delta Darts from McChord Air Force Base to follow this airplane. They're flying in a formation so that D.B. Cooper can't see them if he looks out the windows. One above, one below.
He sends the flight attendant away and tells her to close the curtain between first class and where he's at. And he starts cutting one of the parachutes and using the strings to tie the money to him. He then, this is important. There was 2 different type of parachutes that he was given. There was a sport parachute that allowed you to be able to have like more control. It was an easier pull. It just allowed you to be able to control where you land better. There was also a military style parachute, and that's the one that he chose. But of the reserve parachutes, one was real and one was not. And he ended up taking the one that was not. And they got these parachutes from a skydiving school that was nearby. About 8 o'clock, warning light flashes in the cockpit saying that the stairs had been activated. The crew starts talking to him over the intercom system, and he refused any help. They then noticed that there was a change in air pressure, and at about 8:13, the aircraft's tail section sustained upward movement, significant enough to require trimming to bring the plane back to level flight. At 10:15, the stairs were still down when they landed at Reno Airport. The planes that were flying with the 727 did not see Dan Cooper jump.
No. On board the plane, they found his clip-on tie.
Yep.
His tie clip.
Which was mother of pearl. I don't know if that means anything, but...
And 66 unidentified latent fingerprints.
Yeah,
and that's pretty much it.
One of the fingerprints was on the back stairs. So... But see, here's the thing about fingerprints. Is they don't expire. You know?
No.
Once anybody, at any point in time, touches something, there's a fingerprint there until somebody comes along and cleans it. So...
I couldn't imagine they clean airplanes very thoroughly.
Yeah. So there you go. Fingerprints could have been left at any time by anybody. We don't know.
Okay, so this was, of course, sensational news.
Oh, yeah.
An airplane was hijacked, someone ransom money. And in the rush to get, to try to find a suspect, police find a man who has a record, and his name is D.B. Cooper. And he lives in Oregon. And somewhere along the way, a local reporter, James Long, in a rush to get the story out, gets Dan Cooper and D.B. Cooper flip-flopped. And that story gets picked up at the wire service. And the rest is history.
Yep.
One mistake gives us D.B. Cooper instead of Dan Cooper.
Now, D.B. Cooper, or is it Dan Cooper? Dan Cooper is actually also the name of a military paratrooper in a comic book.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's a fun fact of possibly not widely known information. Could be a coincidence. Could not.
Yeah. So they have a massive search effort for him. They know that his jump time was 8:13. Because that is when the force in the tail caused the correction that to be needed. That was consistent with a jump.
Right.
So they used helicopters and boats. They went door to door. They found nothing. No sign of D.B. Cooper. But people don't just vanish.
Well, and he kind of did. Because, I mean, honestly, to this day, we still don't know who he is. They had lots of suspects, which we will get into in a minute. But can we just say how brave or stupid or bravely stupid this guy is, that you hijack a plane, you ask for parachutes, and you trust that they didn't give you crap? I mean, one of the ones he took was crap, but I don't know. If I was going to do something like that, I'd bring my own parachutes. I mean, now I'm sure you would they'd be like, why are you taking a parachute? But I just don't know. I don't trust anybody, so I'd think that they would give me something that wasn't right. But the conditions that he jumped into...
It was raining?
Yes, it was...
And he jumped over a river.
Right, and this is the Pacific Northwest, people, in November. So...
I'm just picturing that scene from, what was it, Rambo?
Yeah.
When I think of that area of the country, I think of Bigfoot and Rambo. And people who live out there are probably like, oh my God, did she really just say that? No, your state is very beautiful, but like, it looks very wild and untamed.
Yeah.
And not someplace that I would want to jump out of a plane at.
Well, I wouldn't want to jump out of a plane here either. I mean, it is my goal to one day voluntarily jump out of a plane, but I want a instructor with me when I do it. I don't want to just...
Yeah, I prefer to be strapped to the instructor so that he has, like, you know, control of, like, the important mechanisms.
Yeah. Okay.
Or her. I don't care. It can be a girl.
But they think, based on how fast the airplane was flying and atmospheric conditions, that the wind would have probably been about 200 miles per hour. And the temperature... -7, and then you've got the rain beating on you at the same time. Not good conditions.
No.
At all.
Now, if you want to lose a couple days of your life, you can look on the FBI vault and pull up the D.B. Cooper files.
There's a lot.
There's maps and just all kinds of stuff. I think there's like over 60 volumes of, by the time they suspended the case, there was over 60 volumes in the file of D.B. Cooper.
Yeah. I mean, they tried to find him.
And they did not suspend their formal investigation until July 8th, 2016. That is when the FBI officially gave up.
Well,
now they will still investigate
if something comes
significant tips. Yes, they won't turn you away if you've got like pertinent information, but they're no longer actively pursuing.
In 1976, so the year I was born, they indicted Dan D.B. Cooper on these charges so that they could kind of beat the statute of limitations. So that way, if he's ever found, and he would be probably in his 80s or something now, if he's ever found, they can, like, he will have to answer for his actions. Yeah, so, I mean, they were that serious that they weren't going to let this...
Well, actually, a man who claimed that he was D.B. Cooper passed away recently. I didn't know if you wanted to get to it or not. Well, and he actually kind of looks like the composite sketch from eyewitnesses who came in contact with Mr. Dan Cooper.
Yeah, I thought we would talk about that when we start running through some of the
Okay, we can wait.
Okay.
I won't jump the gun on us.
You know, our criminology background always leads me down the path of profiling. And so it makes you really think, okay, this person probably familiar with the area because, you know, he was going to jump out of a plane and find his way somewhere. So he probably knew where he was going. I wouldn't be comfortable just strapping myself into a parachute and jumping out unless I had done it before. So he was probably familiar with parachuting. And
he probably had enough familiarity that he would know, he knew what he was doing in some regards.
And he knew something about planes because he knew the minimum that they could fly. And he knew that the 727 had the stairs. He didn't know how to work them, but he knew that they were there.
Okay, has anybody encountered on Facebook, and I've tried to search for this person and I can't find it now. But ever so often you'll see somebody posting on major news stories in the comment section. Such and such and such was D.B. Cooper.
No.
And it always is some, like, Boeing worker. Mm-mm. I wonder if any of our listeners have ever experienced this. Since we determined that this was going to be our story this week, I have tried to find one of her comments, and I can't now. But, like, a month or two ago, every article I would read, that would be in the comment section.
Well, see, I avoid the comment section of any news article because they always make me want to pull my hair out. And it causes extreme stress that there are a lot of people that are that stupid. So, no, I avoid the comment section. Okay, since we're going to talk about suspects, you can talk about yours now.
Yeah. In July, a man named Robert Rastrak died of natural causes. And he was really 75 old. Years old. Yeah. He was 75 years old. He was an Army paratrooper. And he loved to talk about one of the most famous hijackings in history. What did he like to talk about? Oh, a little thing about D.B. Cooper, of course.
Yeah. So, around the time of the D.B. Cooper hijacking, he was really, really needing money. He was living with his stepfather, who turned up dead. And he had about $75,000 in fake checks. But he had, by the time the cops came to ask him about the hijacking, he was already gone. He had fled to Iran, and he stayed there until 78.
Yeah.
So he came back in 78, and that's when he found himself being asked about his...
But I'm sorry, I zoned out a little bit. Did you tell why he was actually discharged from the Army?
Oh, he was lying about his education.
Yeah, he falsified his college transcripts, so he got kicked out of the Army. He also was lying about what his rank was and medals he had earned. So he has a history of being less than truthful. But does being a liar mean that you're also a hijacker?
Well, no.
He was a very colorful individual. In 1978, he tried to fake his own death by renting a plane and crashing it.
I mean, haven't we all done that?
I mean, I've done that like 3 times already this month. I don't even know where you can rent a plane at.
I don't either. That is not the kind of social circles that I run with.
No.
I barely know how to rent a car.
I mean, I'm Facebook friends with 2 people who own planes, but that's about it.
Yeah, no, all of my friends are poor. We're like...
I'm Facebook friends with that person that Mom used to work with that owns a couple jets.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about them.
And then I have a Facebook friend who has like a little, like just a little plane that he flies around and takes pictures of Eastern Kentucky and how beautiful it is.
Yeah. No, sorry.
But none of them are ever like, hey, do you want to come fly around in our plane? It's not like we're that tight.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that lying about everything means that you're a hijacker.
Well, after he got out of prison for the whole attempted to fake his own death thing, that's when he started hitting the news circuit and saying that he was D.B. Cooper.
I kind of feel like he just wants notoriety and he doesn't care how he gets it.
Yeah. I kind of think that he probably saw that he looked a little bit like him and was like, this is my ticket.
Right. Because according to reports, D.B. Cooper was about 6'1", with like wavy dark hair, brown eyes. Although then he put sunglasses on for most of his hijacking flight. And he was wearing a business suit. and loafers. But, I mean, that's not really of noteworthy because that was just around the time that, like, people dressed up for stuff.
Yeah, but I'm not really going to wear loafers if I'm hijacking a plane and jumping out of it.
Well, what are you...
I'm going to wear something that's not going to fall off my feet as I'm jumping out of a plane.
Well, I mean, I guess. So, on the day of the hijacking, 6 people called the FBI to say that Ted Mayfield, a skydiving teacher with a criminal record, his criminal record included armed robbery and stealing an airplane. People kept saying that it was him. They didn't know how, but they knew that it had to have been him. Now, the FBI said that it wasn't Mayfield because Mayfield himself called the FBI 4 hours after Cooper jumped out of the plane to give them a list of local skydivers who he thinks could have been behind it. The FBI, not very bright in this situation, thought, oh, well, that means that he's innocent because he's given us names of people it could be. And it was 4 hours after he jumped, so it's probably not enough time, or it's probably plenty of time to get to the phone or whatever. But the FBI didn't think that it was Mayfield. And I think that that's probably stupid. Like, 4 hours, you could jump out of a plane, I think, and get to a phone to cover your butt by blaming it on somebody else.
It depends on how far from phone service he was when he landed.
Right, I mean, it's the 70s, so not everybody has a phone, and there's no cell phones, but still. 4 hours? I mean, surely. But anyway, the FBI thought that Dan Cooper must have been an amateur skydiver, not a professional one, because of that front chute that he chose was the dummy chute that didn't work. So they thought that maybe he was just an amateur because he didn't know the difference. In 1994, Mayfield was arrested because he'd given 2 of his skydiving students parachutes that didn't work, and they fell to their death. So, obviously,
nice.
Couldn't spot
and by nice, I mean not. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Richard Floyd McCoy Jr. was a copycat hijacker. Shortly after D.B. Cooper, he hijacked an airplane and asked for $500,000 ransom. He tried to do this with a unloaded gun and a paperweight that looked like a hand grenade. So, unlike Cooper, though, he left lots of fingerprints and got caught. McCoy was arrested and broke out of prison with another fake handgun. This one made out of dental paste. Anyway, FBI caught up with McCoy and shot him. And the FBI agent that shot him said that when I killed McCoy, I also shot D.B. Cooper at the same time.
But probably not.
Probably not. Now, yes, he was a copycat, but that doesn't mean that he was, he wasn't Dan Cooper. For one thing, when Dan Cooper hijacked, he was nice and polite and was very professional and businesslike. Richard McCoy was kind of rude and abrupt. So, I mean, unless you're just annoyed that you have to do it again, there's no call for that, really. Kenneth Christensen. Lyle Christensen in 2003 was watching a documentary on D.B. Cooper when he thought that D.B. Cooper looked just like his brother, Kenneth. Kenneth was a paratrooper in World War II, and he worked as a flight attendant at Northwest Orient. He had never been wealthy until 1972, when suddenly had enough money to buy a new house with cash.
That sounds suspicious.
Yes, except for Dan Cooper's money was all, they'd taken pictures of every dollar with and put it on microfiche. So none of that money was ever spent. In 1994, when Kenneth was dying of cancer, he told his brother that there's something that I need to tell you, or I should tell you, but I can't tell you. Lyle didn't press him, and then Kenneth died. But I mean, we know people who have tried to have deathbed confessions about stuff and died before they could actually do it. I mean, our friend Chiquita, for one, her mom started to tell her that her uncle was really her dad.
And that her mom was really a Mexican woman.
Right. But she died before she could tell her.
Yeah. If you knew her, you would know absolutely that this is true just by looking at her. And she knows this is true.
I don't think it's Lyle Christensen, even though there are a lot of people who do believe that it is. Because why in the world would you hijack a plane of a company that you work for? I mean, you might run into some of those people at like a company party or something.
Holly, have you ever watched that movie, Office Space?
Yes.
Okay, then.
So, Florence Schaffner, that was the flight attendant who spoke to Cooper the most, she looked at a picture of Kenneth Christensen and said that he was the best fit yet. So, but that doesn't, I don't know.
Okay, so we told you that his tie was left behind on the plane. Well, there was a partial DNA profile that was able to be extracted from the tie. And that has been compared to 3 people. I kind of hope that with so many cases being solved through like DNA sites now, that we're on the cusp of a major break in the D.B. Cooper case because of that. But we don't know.
Yeah, that would be great.
They've compared it to 3 people. Dwayne Weber, Lynn Doyle Cooper, and Sheridan Peterson.
Okay, so Lynn...
2 of those 3 were publicly cleared by the FBI.
Right.
Lynn Cooper and Dwayne Weber.
So, Lynn Cooper was obsessed with Dan Cooper. He even kept one of the Dan Cooper comic books. His niece, Marla Cooper, is absolutely convinced that Lynn and his brother Dewey were behind the hijacking. Because on the day of the hijacking...
Abby and Emmy, if you ever get super convinced that I'm the mastermind behind a major crime like that, you keep your mouth shut.
So on the day
you remember the family code.
On the day of the hijacking, Marla says that her uncle came home with a bloody shirt and said that he had been in a car accident. When he thought she wasn't listening, though, she heard him tell Dewey, "We did it. Our money problems are over. We hijacked an airplane." But that's it. That's all we got. Honestly, I think that he's a good bet, I guess.
Yeah. Better than most.
Yeah.
Now, Sheridan Peterson has not been cleared publicly. He used to work for Boeing. He was a technical editor he had access to the commercial and aerospace divisions and he possessed DoD clearance. He was also a skydiver.
Ooh.
He was an expert skydiver. Like, we're talking smoke jumper. He knew his stuff in the air.
So, that's a good bet.
At the time of the hijacking, he was living in Nepal. And he had been unemployed for almost 3 years.
So, probably not him.
But the alibi he provided turned out to be fake.
Oh, so...
Yeah.
Curiouser and curiouser.
Yeah. He had opened a private bank account overseas early in 1971. And more importantly enough, he had cufflinks and a money clip that matched D.B. Cooper's tie clip, and they were only sold together in a set. They wasn't sold separately.
Ah.
Yeah.
And I feel like the way men dressed at that time period, that even if it wasn't sold in a set, that they would buy it all in a set.
Yes, because men back then they had style.
I'm also remembering, like, Grandma back then, her purses and her shoes would match each other, and it would be horrifying for her to go out and not have them as a set.
Yeah.
I feel like I'll disappoint her every day.
I'm sitting here in, like, dirty tennis shoes and blue jeans and a t-shirt, and I'm like, I know she's looking down from wherever she is, and like, oh my God, where did I go wrong with you? Get in there and put you some good shoes on.
Yeah, our grandma.
But anyway,
like, I always say that, like, on a side note, sorry people, I always say, like, what you grew up, like, lacking is kind of what you become obsessed with when you get older. Like, does that make sense? Like, Grandma probably didn't have good shoes growing up, so she made it her life's mission as an adult to have lots of shoes. And, like, but she bought me shoes all the time, and she bought you shoes all the time, and, like, she was buying shoes for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, all of her grandkids.
Good shoes were important to her.
They were very important to her. Like, your shoes had to be clean. Your shoes had to match your outfit. If I tried to wear a dress and a pair of tennis shoes or something, she would have lost her mind. That was a really big tangent.
Yes. So, Sheridan has been interviewed by law enforcement many, many times. And in a interview in 2003, he actually described the dummy reserve chute in terms that only D.B. Cooper would have known.
Really?
Yeah, like, he knew details of the chute and the rig that he used jumping that really only D.B. Cooper, somebody who had hands on that pack, would have known. And of course, anytime the FBI asks him straight out, are you D.B. Cooper, he refuses to deny it.
Well, I sure wouldn't be admitting it either, because...
Yeah. But I mean, but then again, well, I don't know. Part of me says that if the FBI looked at me and said, are you D.B. Cooper, I'd probably be like, I can neither confirm nor deny.
Well, you weren't born until 82, so...
But also, I know for a fact that I would not put myself in a position where the FBI would be like, we need to watch her.
Okay,
you know.
Another side note, one time I got interviewed by the FBI, and I almost admitted to the crime, and I didn't do it. Because they're intimidating. Now, we've mentioned on the podcast before that one of the things that started our obsession with true crime was our cousin was murdered when I was a freshman in high school. She was a sophomore in high school. She being my cousin, not Heather. And it was just one of those things that, like, it totally changed the trajectory of our lives. Like, you know, our grandma became super hyper vigilant about everything true crime. Like, and she would, don't do this, girls, don't do that. You know, I mean, she really drilled it in our heads so that, you know, nothing happened to us. Well, in the course of that, there was a suspect, and I encountered the suspect. I'm not going to say any names because, one, I wouldn't want the person to beat me up or murder me, and two, no charges were ever filed, so this person is technically free and innocent. But I ran into the suspect at a summer vacation Bible school thing, and this was like a time when we had like all of our pictures. They weren't on our phones because we didn't have phones, but we had to carry them around in our purse and change out our favorite ones with these little like photo album things, right? So I had like pictures of me and her in this photo album thing, and like, you know, all the girls were like, oh, let me see your pictures, and then we would pass our pictures back and forth because we were very lame in the early 90s. And so this girl was looking at my pictures, and she was like, I could have gone all day without seeing that picture. And I mean, she didn't admit to anything, but me and a bunch of other people that had run-ins with this girl, I really wouldn't even call that a run-in, but had dealings with this girl, got interviewed by the FBI, where they asked us a whole bunch of questions about this person and what we may or may not have known, and, you know, I mean, all kinds of stuff. And they were very imposing. It was two guys, and all I could remember is that one of them had one brown eye and one brown eye and one green eye. Or maybe it was
you almost confessed to murdering our cousin.
Or maybe it was brown and blue, but his eyes were two different colors. And yes, like when they're staring at you, I almost said, yeah, I did it. I did not do. I wasn't even there. It was prom night, and I was at prom, and then I went to a prom party, and they came and got me at the prom party and said, you know, your cousin was dead. So no way, I wasn't even there.
And knowing our parents, that's probably exactly how they put it.
Actually, it was not our parents that told me. It was because I was at this party with my other cousin. We were all about the same age. Me, and I had two cousins that were 2 months apart. Me and the other cousin were at this party, and then our parents came, and it was actually her parents that told us. So they did it a little bit more tactful. But no, Mom is notorious for saying, hey, do you know such and such? Well, they died. Or they're dead. Yeah.
Like, it's got to the point where if someone says a conversation with, do you remember such and such?
We know they're dead.
We respond with, are they dead?
I mean, I hate to laugh at that, but it's happened so many times. So that's just how she does it. Okay. So in 1980, a kid was having a picnic with his family, and he was digging in the sand by the riverbank to make a fire pit.
Columbia River. Yeah, on the Columbia River.
Yeah. And he found, like, as he was digging in the sand, he found bills. And they were matted together. And he thought that it looked like they had just been, like, dropped there, and not that they had actually been, like, buried there. So, he, he thought that it looked like they had just been, like, dropped there, and not that they had actually been, like, buried there. So, he, 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 the FBI looked at the numbers on the bills that were found, and they did come from the money that Dan Cooper took.
Yeah.
But this river feeds from other rivers. So it kind of could have been that he dropped maybe near the Washougal River that merges with the Columbia, and maybe that's where it was found. I don't know. But of one of those packets, there was 10 bills missing.
Yeah.
And they found 3 packets, but the rest of the money was never found.
So they came to the conclusion that it was very unlikely that this money was just free floating around, because 10 bills wouldn't have just slipped out. And those 3 bundles wouldn't have stayed together in that case.
Right. They had actually dredged that river at some point, scooping up the sand and then dumping it on the bank.
I think that was 1974.
Yeah.
And they came to the conclusion, due to the sand and clay layers, that the bundle of bills had to have came to that point after the dredging had taken place. So the bills got buried there after 1974.
Yeah, so that's weird. I mean, that means it didn't just fall out of the sky and land in the sand and then get covered over. So what do you think happened?
Well, I mean, there's, okay, I forgot to write this in my notes, so I can't remember, but at one point in time, they found a card that had instructions on how to work the back door to those planes, the back stairs. And I want to say they found it near a lake. But like I said, I didn't write this in my notes, and now I can't find it anywhere.
Oh no.
Yeah. But it was directions on how to lower the stairs for that particular plane.
Huh.
Okay, so our theories. I don't have a theory of who did it.
I don't either.
I think it had to have been someone who knew something about parachutes and jumping. I don't think an amateur would have done that.
Right.
I believe it's somebody who at least had a decent knowledge of airplanes to begin with, but I'm not going to point fingers. And, you know, I want to leave a little mystery here. I want to believe that he got away with this. For once, I want to say, I hope that the crook, the criminal, got away.
Right.
And is spent his money living, you know, in some non-extradition country that he could spend all that money in without it being traced by the FBI, and just lived his best life. But I hope it was somebody who, like, really needed the money.
Right. Well, that rules out all of our suspects, because none of them left the country. Well, except that one that ran to Iran.
But then he came back.
I mean, there's so many theories. You know, he died in the jump. He landed in the water and got washed away. I'm going to go with the planes did not see him jump. And so they think that means that he didn't deploy his parachute. But I mean,
it was not jump.
Weather conditions sucked.
In bad conditions, it's very likely that they just didn't see it.
Right. So I'm going to say he succeeded, because at some point, the way they looked for him, you would have found something.
They used a submarine to check the lakes.
Yeah, you would.
A freaking submarine.
You would have found a parachute, or a piece of a parachute, or his body.
Yeah, I think that the search was just so extensive, And so many years have passed with so many people in that area that we would have found some tangible piece of the puzzle besides money by now.
Right. So I'm going to say he jumped. Some of the money blew off of him.
Because, I mean, he tied it on with parachute cord.
Right. And it was 200 miles per hour wind. So I'm going to say that some of the money blew off, and that's the money we found on the riverbank. Well, I mean, we didn't find it, but somebody found it on the riverbank. And he himself landed and lived happily ever after.
Yeah. This might be one of the few times that you hear us both rooting for the criminal.
Well, I mean, he didn't hurt anybody. Nobody died. So, yeah, let him have his money. But nobody else do it, because that's too stressful. I mean, it was not a victimless crime, because Florence Schaffner she took a month off work after it happened and was a completely paranoid person after that. Like, she was convinced that D.B. Cooper was going to come back and kill her because she was a witness.
Yeah. But in reality, he just took his money and ran.
Right. And the other flight attendant, Tina Mucklow, she changed her name and became a nun. Oh yeah, I also wanted to add there were letters written after the fact, and I'm not going to get into those because I honestly don't think that.
I don't believe they were D.B. Cooper.
I don't think they were D.B. Cooper. But if you would like to read these letters,
just Google D.B. Cooper letters.
Yeah, they're on coasttocoastam.com. You can look them up, and there's actually a whole big analysis of that they've done to show connection, trying to tie it to a Bill Gossett. I'm not going to go into that because I don't think that they were D.B. Cooper. For one thing, he took back like everything that had his handwriting on it. He got back the note. You know, he was very careful not to leave any evidence. So I don't think that he's going to pull a Dennis Rader and start sending letters.
Yeah, I don't think he was really in this for fame and attention. He was in it for money.
Right. He signed his name on the ticket, Dan Cooper. All of these letters were signed D.B. Cooper, which, you know, we know is what the media got wrong. So, no. I'm not going to go into that because I don't think that they're him.
No. And I kind of think that all this in-depth research on letters is kind of a waste of time.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just people writing letters to get themselves attention.
Even if you don't know even if no one knows that it's them writing it, they get a thrill out of the fact that they're shaking up people.
Yeah. So,
do we have a stupid criminal today?
Oh, listen, we have to use, I know you already shared it to our Instagram, but I feel like you've got to share our stupid Kentucky criminal. The stupidest of stupid criminals this week.
Okay, hold on, let me find it. The title is Kentucky Man Arrested at Pentagon with Shotgun and Jim Beam Vanilla. And y'all, and I'm saying y'all now because I'm going into Eastern Kentucky mode. The fact that he was drinking Jim Beam Vanilla is very important to people in Kentucky.
The fact that he was drinking Jim Beam, because you can't go off on a crazy half-baked drunken crusade and take some non-Kentucky alcohol with you.
But vanilla?
That makes it go down easier.
But yeah, the flavor of your whiskey is important in Kentucky. We are an alcoholic beverage state, particularly bourbons and whiskeys.
Yeah, not me. I mean, I prefer Jaeger, and it's not made in Kentucky. Like my drink tasting like cough syrup.
So, Charles Lawson of Pineville traveled to the Pentagon on August 6th, armed with a shotgun, knives, and a machete. Pentagon police said Lawson stated he was there for liberty business. Police found the loaded shotgun, along with shells, inside his pickup, placed him in handcuffs. They also found a green leafy substance in white paper, marijuana.
Yeah.
He told authorities that he had purchased the ammo at Walmart in Millsboro and then drove straight to the Pentagon. Police actually had a hard time deciphering what he was saying. I'm sure part of it was because of his Eastern Kentucky accent, and part of it was the fact that he had been drinking and getting high all freaking day.
Well, let me see. Drinking, getting high, Eastern Kentucky accent, probably no education. He is the stereotype that people think of when they think about us. And you know what? 90% of us is not like that.
Instead of going to jail, he actually went to a hospital for a mental health evaluation because court records have shown that he has been involuntarily hospitalized at a mental health facility a couple times, I think.
And he still has access to weapons.
He has been
part of the problem, people.
He was denied the purchase of a firearm in West Virginia. Good on you, West Virginia.
Okay, can Kentucky please get on board? Guys, for you who do not know, do you know that Kentucky passed a law that went into effect July 1st that we no longer we can conceal carry all the time. We don't have to have any training. We don't have to have a special class. We don't have to know how to use the gun. We can just strap a gun to us and go wherever the hell we want to. That terrifies the fuck out of me.
Oh, no. According to this article, he is not allowed to have a firearm because he has been previously committed to a mental institution. And he has a diagnosis of bipolar schizophrenia.
Okay, well,
but
I am bipolar.
Honestly, I'm reading through this, and a shotgun, marijuana, Jim Beam, a machete. I know at least 75% of the guys in Eastern Kentucky have most of that stuff in their vehicle at any given time. I'm 90% sure I have probably 2 machetes in my car right now. But that's not for like sinister purposes. That's because sometimes I go visit old cemeteries, and sometimes to get to old cemeteries, you need to, hack down the path to get there.
Well, I have none of that in my car. So, I guess I'm boring.
Yeah, but that's because you are not allowed to because of work.
Well, it's true. When you work on a school, when your office is inside of a school, you kind of can't carry stuff like that. Not if you want to keep your job. And, I really like my job.
Okay. So, I kind of want to address something else. There was several really good stupid criminals this week, but there's something weird going on in Virginia that I want to talk about.
Okay.
You all know I love Virginia.
Yes.
One of my favorite states. But several doorbell cams in one particular town has caught a man wearing a TV on his head, leaving old TVs on porches of houses. One homeowner, Jim Brooksbank, said he's really committed to his trade. Yeah. And then he went on to say, he wants to be known as TV Santa Claus. I don't really know.
Yeah.
On Sunday morning, more than 50 homes in one town, in the Hampshire neighborhood, found old TVs sitting on their porches. 50 homes in one neighborhood. One person said they thought their son had brought it home. So that is our honorable mention. And I don't really think it is a stupid criminal. I think it's just somebody having a really fun prank. So, yeah. So if you are the TV Santa Claus, thank you for giving me a chuckle.
But please don't leave a TV on my doorstep.
No. Or mine. That'd just be weird.
Okay, so as usual, check out my shops, please. Cat Hair Glitter on Etsy, or cathairandglitter.com, or Olivia Beth Boutique. I am busy with the shops. Heather is kicking ass on YouTube. She has got new content turning out all the time, and it's completely separate from our content here on the podcast, so you're getting bonus.
Yeah, I actually recorded, before we recorded this episode tonight, I recorded 2 episodes for my YouTube channel. So my throat is a little sore right now. I've been talking for a long time. But I think I'm putting that really good stuff over on YouTube, and I would love your all support.
Yep. Go subscribe. I will drop a link to everything in the show notes.
And as always, thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.